The evening sun cast long shadows over the stable, stretching across the wooden beams like grasping fingers. A warm, earthy scent filled the air, the mixture of hay, leather, and something distinctly alive. Sarah ran a hand down the donkey's coarse mane, her fingers absent-mindedly tracing the ridges of its spine. She had done this 100 times before, yet tonight, her heart pounded against her ribs. She should have been inside, sitting at the dinner table with her husband and daughter, discussing mundane things, school, weather, the price of grain. But she wasn't. Instead, she was here waiting. The stable doors groaned as they parted slightly. A breath of cool air curled through the space, carrying with it the scent of another presence. Sarah didn't turn. She didn't need to. "You shouldn't have come," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "And yet, here I am," Daniel replied. His voice was steady, confident. He always carried himself that way, unapologetic, unburdened. It was what had drawn her to him in the first place, the effortless way he navigated life while she felt caged within her own. Sarah tightened her grip on the donkey's bridle, feeling the rough leather bite into her palm. This was wrong. She had told herself 1,000 times. Yet, the heat between them crackled, like dry leaves set aflame. Daniel stepped closer, his breath warm against her neck. "Tell me to leave." She should have. The words formed in her mind, but they refused to leave her lips. Instead, she turned slightly, just enough to see the sharp line of his jaw, the glint in his eyes that promised something dangerous and irresistible. Her pulse quickened. A betrayal this small, a look, a touch, a moment too long in another's presence, could be explained away. But she knew better. This was only the beginning, a slow descent into something she would never be able to take back. The donkey shifted beside them, its ears twitching at an unseen disturbance. Sarah took a shaky breath, pressing her palm against its side, as if grounding herself. The animal, oblivious to the human sins unfolding in its presence, merely flicked its tail. "I shouldn't," she whispered. "But you want to." She closed her eyes. Her husband was a good man, predictable, kind, safe. Her daughter, Emily, adored her, trusting in the world as only children could. Sarah should have held on to that, should have clung to the life she had built. Instead, she turned fully toward Daniel. A movement caught in the periphery of her vision, small, almost imperceptible, but enough. A shadow by the stable doors. A pause. A presence. Her stomach clenched. Had someone seen? The thought slashed through her like a knife, yet it was already too late. Emily pressed herself against the stable's wooden frame, her breath shallow, her hands trembling at her sides. She hadn't meant to spy. She had only come looking for her mother, wondering why she hadn't joined them for dinner. But now, she stood frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to unsee. Her mother's voice had always been soft, reassuring. Now it was different, lower, uncertain, wrapped in something Emily didn't understand but instinctively knew was wrong. The man standing so close to her, this stranger in their private world, wasn't her father. A strange, twisting feeling coiled in her stomach. She wanted to step forward, to say something, to call out, to stop whatever was happening. But fear rooted her to the ground. If she spoke, what would happen next? Would her mother turn, eyes wide with guilt? Would the man disappear like a shadow, leaving behind a silence that could never be explained? The donkey shifted again, its hooves scuffing against the dirt floor. The sound snapped Emily back to reality, and she took a slow, careful step backward. The wooden boards creaked beneath her feet, and for a single, agonizing moment, her mother's head tilted slightly, as if she had heard something. Emily held her breath. The man whispered something in her mother's ear, too soft to make out, but whatever it was made her smile, just barely, just for a second. And that was the worst part. That smile. It was small, fleeting, but real. Emily felt something inside her crack, like thin ice underfoot. She wanted to run, to rush home and bury herself under the covers, pretend this night had never happened. But she knew the truth wouldn't fade so easily. Another step back. This time, she was careful. quiet. The stable doors stood open just enough for her to slip through, and she did, heart pounding in her chest. The night air was sharp against her skin, but it did nothing to cool the heat rising up her neck. She moved swiftly across the yard, toward the house where her father sat alone at the table, waiting. Her father. Her stomach clenched at the thought of him, of his warm, patient eyes, the way he always reached across the table to tuck her hair behind her ear when she spoke. Did he know? Could he feel, even now, that something had changed? Emily climbed the steps, her legs suddenly weak beneath her. She paused at the door, fingers hovering over the handle. If she went inside, if she sat down and pretended nothing had happened, could she make it true? Could she force her mind to erase what she had seen? The voices from the stable still echoed in her ears. No. She could never unsee it. And she could never forget. Emily had not spoken of what she saw. Not yet. But silence had a weight of its own, pressing down on the dinner table, slipping into the spaces where conversation should have been. Her father noticed first. "You're quiet tonight," he said, glancing at her over his plate. His voice was gentle, but it still made her flinch. Sarah, sitting opposite, barely looked up. She was focused on slicing her food into neat, precise pieces, but her hands were unsteady. Emily saw the way her mother's fingers tensed around the knife, the way her gaze remained carefully lowered. "I'm fine," Emily murmured. She wasn't. Everything felt different now. The walls of their home, once warm and familiar, seemed to close in on her, holding secrets within them. Her mother's voice no longer sounded the same, too careful, too measured. Even her laughter, when she forced it, rang hollow. Emily's stomach twisted. "Does he know?" She wondered, watching her father as he absently reached for his glass. Could he sense the shift in the air, the way everything felt slightly off-kilter? She had expected the world to break apart after what she saw. But it didn't. Instead, it carried on as if nothing had happened, as if betrayal could slip between the cracks of everyday life and remain hidden. But Emily saw it everywhere. She saw it in the way her mother avoided her gaze, in the way she hesitated before answering simple questions, in the way she sometimes paused by the window at night, staring toward the stables as if drawn by something unspoken. It made Emily sick. One evening, as they sat in the dim glow of the kitchen, she couldn't hold it in any longer. Why do people lie to the ones they love? The question hung in the air, a dagger without a target. Her father's fork stilled against his plate. Sarah's fingers curled tightly in her lap. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" her father asked. His brows knitted together, concern flickering in his eyes. Emily's throat tightened. She could feel her mother watching her now, waiting, bracing. She should have said nothing. Should have let the silence stretch unbroken, let the weight of what she knew settle deep inside her until it disappeared. But she couldn't. She looked straight at Sarah. "I just don't understand why someone would hide something that hurts other people." A beat of silence. Then, the scrape of a chair against the floor. Sarah stood abruptly, gathering plates with shaking hands. "It's late. Emily, you should get some rest." Her voice was firm, but not steady. Emily didn't move. Her father glanced between them, confusion darkening his face. "Sarah?" he asked softly. Emily saw the panic flicker across her mother's expression, brief, but undeniable. She knew, and now so did her father. The house was silent that night, but it was not peaceful. Emily lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her heart pounding against her ribs. The air felt too thick, pressing down on her like a weight she could not escape. She had seen the look in her father's eyes, the confusion, the slow, creeping understanding. The way her mother had stiffened, her breath catching just long enough to betray her fear. Something had cracked. She heard movement beyond her door, the soft creak of footsteps in the hallway. Then a voice, low but urgent. "Sarah." Her father. Emily's pulse quickened. She sat up, straining to hear. "I need you to tell me the truth," he said. A pause. Too long. Too telling. Then, her mother's voice, thin and stretched tight. "What truth, David?" A sharp exhale. "Don't do that." Don't pretend you don't know what I'm asking. Emily swallowed hard, gripping the blanket between her fingers. Another silence. Then, her mother's voice, quieter now, almost pleading. David, please. Let it go. A bitter laugh. Let it go? You want me to just... His voice caught, as if he couldn't finish the sentence. I saw the way Emily looked at you tonight. I don't know what she knows, but I know what I feel. Emily squeezed her eyes shut. Footsteps. A chair scraping against the floor. Her mother's breath shuddering. I never meant to hurt you, Sarah whispered. A sharp intake of breath. Then why did you? Silence. And then, the worst sound of all. A quiet, broken sob. Emily felt something deep inside her fracture. She had wanted the truth to come out, hadn't she? She had wanted her mother to answer for what she had done. But now, hearing it unfold like this, raw and unfiltered, she wasn't sure anymore. She thought of the man in the stable, the way her mother had turned toward him, the ghost of a smile on her lips. She thought of her father, sitting at the dinner table night after night, never once suspecting that his world was slipping away from him. She thought of herself, caught somewhere between them, knowing too much and understanding too little. A movement outside her door startled her. The handle turned, and for a moment, she thought her mother might come in, might try to explain, might beg her not to hate her. But the door never opened. Instead, the footsteps retreated, growing fainter until they were gone. Emily lay back down, staring at the ceiling once more. Her mother had made her choice. And now everything had changed.